so theatrically intense that it could reshape everything you thought you knew about the Roloff family. This isn't another farm dispute, a family argument, or routine on-screen drama. This is a rumor-fueled narrative involving identity confusion, financial intrigue, and a hidden inheritance that has stirred up a storm behind the scenes. According to insider whispers, a dark chapter has been quietly forming around the family, an accusation that, if true, could shatter years of trust and long-standing relationships. The claim is simple yet explosive. Some sources allege that Karen Chandler may have used Amy Roloff's identity to lay claim to a secret $200,000 inheritance. These details remain unverified, but the excitement, speculation, and drama surrounding the allegation are already sky-high. Make sure you're subscribed to Motion 24, because this story is developing fast, and we'll be bringing you every update, analysis, and behind-the-scenes insight as it unfolds. Turn on your notifications, because the next chapters of this saga are ones you absolutely won't want to miss. This is The Great Inheritance Impersonation, a tale of allegations, mystery, and an emotional storm within one of reality TV's most-watched families. To understand the gravity of this situation, we have to rewind the clock, not just by weeks or months, but by years. The foundation of this alleged crime is built upon the complicated and often fractured history of Roloff farms. The farm remained the center of the Roloff universe for decades, but it was also a place where spirits still lived and problems were never solved. When Amy Roloff made the hard choice to sell her half of the farm to Matt, she wasn't simply selling land. She was giving up a life, a history, and a home full of memories. Moving was a big part of the process. It took a lot of work to go through 30 years of living. Anyone who has moved knows that it's almost hard to get everything. There are always little things from your past that you leave behind, like a box of old souvenirs, a photo album you forgot about, and, most crucially for this narrative, mail. For years after Amy moved out and married Chris Merrick, a little amount of her old mail kept coming to the farm's main address. According to our sources, people often forget about previous subscriptions, accounts they haven't used in a while, and faraway friends who never got the news about her new life. This mail was mostly a pain in the neck. It was a bunch of rubbish that Matt or Corinne would throw out or give to Amy every now and again. But buried in this pile of old letters was a ticking time bomb. One letter that would set off a storm of lies. The farm where Amy used to live was now a blind hole in her life, a place where her personal information was at risk, and where someone who knew a lot about her background could, in theory, take advantage of that risk. Karen Chandler knew more about how the farm worked and its secrets than anybody else, except for Matt. The narrative doesn't start in Oregon, but in a peaceful village hundreds of miles away, where an old, distant relative of Amy's died. Amy didn't talk to this person every week because they weren't a close family member. Our sources say that this was Amy's great-aunt, a woman from her mother's side of the family. Amy had only met her a few times when she was a child. Let's call this relative Great-Aunt Mildred. She lived a long and frugal life, and since she didn't have any children of her own, she opted to leave her small fortune to her siblings' children. Amy, who is one of those descendants, was mentioned in the will as a beneficiary. She had no idea this was going to happen. It was a total shock, like a bolt from the blue, a gift from a past she could scarcely remember. The inheritance was huge, $200,000. The estate lawyer, who worked in a small town and was in charge of settling Mildred's affairs, started to get in touch with the people who would benefit. He was a hard worker, but the information he was using was out of date. The last address he could find for Amy J. Roloff in the records was Roloff Farms, where she had lived for 30 years. He did what any lawyer would do since he didn't have a current phone number or email. He wrote a formal legal notice that explained the inheritance, the probate process, and asked Amy to get in touch with him to set up the transfer of monies. He put this important letter in a certified mail envelope, and sent it to the one place Amy no longer lived. This is where the story takes a dark and opportunistic turn. Our sources say that Karen Chandler was cleaning out one of the outbuildings at Roloff Farms, maybe the old office or a storage barn, on what seemed like any other day. These areas on the farm are known for collecting years' worth of junk. There was a box among the old files and forgotten tools. A plain cardboard box with the words Amy's Old Mail on it. There were letters, catalogs, and circulars that had been sitting there for months, maybe longer. Karen chose to go through it before throwing it away because she was both curious and neat. And there it was, a big, crisp envelope from a law firm in another state. It was addressed to Amy J. Roloff and had the obvious red and white markings of certified mail on it. It seemed significant. Anyone else might have put it aside, written a note to give it to Matt, or even texted Amy. But based on what insiders say, Corinne didn't do any of those things. A flash of something else grabbed hold. She opened the letter when she was alone. The legal language may have been hard to understand, but the figures were very clear. $200,000, a gift from someone who has died. For Amy, the document had everything: the name of the dead relative, the law firm's phone number, and the instructions for the person who would get the money. She must have been shocked for a time. But then, a plan supposedly started to take shape. A scheme based on anger, entitlement, and a mind-blowing sense of opportunity. We need to look into the psychology that our sources think was at work to understand why Corinne would even think of committing such a crime. Karen had been Matt Roloff's companion for years, and she had been the matriarch of the farm. She thought she had done the work. She had run the pumpkin patch, dealt with the workers, and helped Matt through his health problems and family problems. She thought of the property as her own now. From this point of view, Amy was the one who had gone. She had taken a buyout worth hundreds of thousands of dollars and moved on. When this letter came, which had found money linked to the Roloff name, it is thought that a warped sense of justice began to grow in her head. This wasn't Amy's money, it was money for the farm. It had gotten to her house. Amy had received her fair share. Karen might have thought that this was hers. It was a rationalization, a terrible way to trick yourself into thinking that one of the worst betrayals imaginable was okay. The plan needed more than just a reason. It needed a lot of personal information. And this is why Corinne was the only person who could have done it. During the years she worked for and lived with Matt, she soaked in all the little things about the Roloff family's past. She had heard Matt talk about his life with Amy. She knew their kids' names, birthdays, and the tiny stories that make up a life. She probably found old papers, photo albums, or recordings that were left behind in the house. She knew when Amy was born. She knew her entire name, which was Amy Jo Roloff. She would have known the answer to the most popular security question of all, her mother's maiden name night. She would have known this from stories or old paperwork. She had the keys to Amy's identity. The initial step in the supposed conspiracy was very careful and planned. Karen created a new bank account before she made any calls. It had to be clean and separate from her and Matt's shared money, like a digital hiding place for the cash. She probably opened it online, in her own name, Karen Chandler, with a bank she had never used before. It was a fake account made for one illegal purpose. This phase is really important because it shows what you want to do. This wasn't a last-minute choice. It was a planned crime that would cost money. Before she even picked up the phone, she had her tools ready and set the stage for the theft. She was ready to make the call once she had set up the secret account and gotten the routing and account details. Picture this. Corinne is home alone, her heart racing, and the lawyer's letter is in front of her. She would have had to calm down and maybe even practice her voice to get it to sound like Amy's. She didn't have to be a professional voice actor. She was calling a lawyer in a different state who had never talked to Amy Roloff. He didn't have much to go on. Corinne just needed to sound sure of herself, believable, and provide the right answers to his queries. She called the number. When the lawyer or his assistant picked up the phone, she said, "Hi, this is Amy Roloff calling." She would have told him that she got his letter about her great-aunt's estate. This would have put the lawyer at ease right away because the beneficiary was getting in touch and moving things along. Then, as is normal, he would have checked her identity. "Of course, Mrs. Roloff. I only need to ask you a few questions to make sure you are the right recipient for security reasons. Please tell me your date of birth." Corinne would have answered right away. "And could you please tell me your mother's maiden name?" Once more, Karen would have given the right answer. Knight. The lawyer has no cause to be suspicious after passing those two checks. He thought he was talking to Amy J. Roloff. Now comes the most important portion of the lie. The lawyer probably asked her if she wanted the checks sent to the address they had on file. Corinne had the chance to move the money at this point. Actually, she would have continued, her voice full of a carefully planned story of mayhem. "That's why I'm calling. Things have been a total chaos since I moved. I'm not even convinced that all of my mail is being sent to the right place. I think I actually misplaced part of the original paperwork you sent me when I moved." It was the best excuse. It clarified why she didn't want a check sent to the farm and gave a good rationale for any uncertainty at the same time. She would have gone on to say, "To make things easier and safer, could you wire the money directly to my new bank account?" For the lawyer, a wire transfer was a common and even better choice. It's quicker and leaves a clear digital trail. He would have easily agreed. "Of course, Mrs. Roloff. All I need is the account number and the routing number." Karen would have quietly read the figures from the information for her hidden account. The lawyer would have read them back to make sure. The trap was ready. She had successfully pretended to be Amy, answered the security questions, told a credible story, and sent a fortune of $200,000 to an account that only she could access. The lawyer would have advised her that the wire will be executed in a few business days after validating the facts. He would also have sent her a final confirmation of the transaction for her records. Karen would have thanked him and hung up the phone, her heart racing. She had done it. The days that followed must have been a masterclass in lying. Karen had to go on with her life if nothing had occurred. She had to talk to Matt and maybe even visit the Roloff kids while keeping this huge secret. She looked like the same Corinne. She was a thief on the inside, waiting for her score. Our sources say that she would have been constantly checking her hidden bank account, hitting refresh on the webpage or mobile, and is safe. It must have been a strong mix of relief, victory, and power. She had done the crime perfectly. She had outsmarted the system, outsmarted Amy, and gotten a lot of money that she thought she deserved. She thought the case was over. Amy would never find out about the money she was supposed to get. The lawyer was happy that he had done his job, and the money was safely put away, ready for her to use whenever and however she wanted. But Karen's arrogance was what brought her down. She had planned for everything except the one thing she couldn't control, her habits and routines. The lawyer, who was a true professional, had promised to send a final confirmation of the wire transfer. And to what address would he send it? The only one he had. He thought it was still true, even if she said she was relocating. Roloff Farms has been legally involved in the lawsuit from the start. He wrote a modest one-page paper. This time it wasn't certified mail. It was just a regular letter. It indicated the date of the transfer, the sum of $200,000, and the name of the bank that would get the money. It was just a piece of paper, a formality, and the last thing he had to do to close the file. He put it in the mail, not knowing that this boring office job would soon be the bombshell that would bring down the whole scheme. The letter traveled across the country and ended up in the same mailbox as the certified letter that changed everything had come weeks earlier. But this time, things will happen in a very different way. This time, it wouldn't be Corinne who found it. This time, fate, or maybe simply the normal things that happen on the farm, would get in the way. Matt Roloff went to retrieve the mail on this day. He sorted through the regular bills and flyers, moving his hands like he did every day. He spotted it then, An envelope from the same law firm in another state, this time addressed to Amy J. Roloff. He probably groaned since he thought it was just more of Amy's old mail that needed to be sent on. But something stopped him. Want to know? The feeling of duty? Or maybe, as our sources say, it was just something they always did. He and Amy had shared everything for years, even their letters. He unlocked it without thinking, thanks to muscle memory from being married for more than 30 years. At first, the words on the page didn't make sense. It was a confirmation of a bank transfer. It was a staggering amount, $200,000. Amy J. Roloff was the name of the person who got it. Matt stood there with a letter in his hand, feeling very confused. $200,000? A legacy? Even though they were divorced, he and Amy still talked about important family and money issues, especially when it came to the kids. She would have definitely talked about a windfall this big. He assumed he knew how much money she had. She had money from the farm, her own business, and her buyout money, but this was a windfall that had come out of nowhere. And why was the confirmation going to his house? A faint but persistent spark of doubt began to grow. Not yet. It wasn't meant at Karen. He wouldn't have even thought of that. His skepticism came from a general sense of worry and perplexity. Was this a con? Was someone trying to exploit Amy's name to make a fake deal? Or had Amy gotten this money somehow and kept it a secret from everyone? It seemed like something was awry. The pieces didn't fit together. He read the document again. The law practice seemed real. The information was quite specific. The money had been sent. Matt knew he had to do something when he saw the piece of paper that Corinne had never expected. The next thing he did would be the thing that would break the whole web of falsehoods. He used his phone to take a picture of the letter and send it to the only person who could solve the mystery, the actual Amy Roloff. He sent a short, confused message that said, "Amy, what is this? Did you know this?" Amy Roloff's phone buzzed from miles away. She looked at the screen and saw that Matt had sent her a message. Her world turned upside down as she opened the picture of the letter. Her eyes moved over the paper, but her brain was having a hard time understanding what it said. A law firm she had never heard of. A $200,000 wire transfer. A gift from someone who has died. What she is called. It was all written down, yet it felt like a dream. She didn't have a great aunt who had died, at least not one she knew was going to leave her money. She definitely hadn't talked to a lawyer or set up a wire transfer. Her heart started to race in her chest as she felt both shocked and horrified. This was not a mistake. This was a whole other thing. The money had been sent. It was over. But she had never had it, not even for a moment. It was taken by someone. Someone had taken her name, her identity, and her money. She realized right away that only a very tiny group of people had enough of her personal information to do something like that. As she looked at the confirmation letter sent to the farm, her mind raced and a cold fear crept in. The house she used to reside in with Matt, and where Corinne Chandler currently lives. The game was over. Corinne thought she had won, that the money was hers, and the secret was protected. But Amy Roloff was about to unleash a torrent of justice that would reveal the truth and send the whole phony company crashing down. The one piece of evidence she never accounted for was finally in the hands of its rightful owner. Amy couldn't get the picture of the letter out of her head. It was a black and white statement of a crime. She was frozen in disbelief for a long time. $200,000 was a lot of money. It would change your life. She felt like the universe had given her a gift when she got an inheritance from a long-lost relative. It was a piece of good luck she never saw coming, but finding out about it just after she found out it had been stolen felt like a cruel joke, a nasty twist of fate. The initial shock rapidly turned into a cold, tight knot of fury in her stomach. This wasn't just some random hacker or fraudster who didn't want to be known. Roloff Farms had received the letter of confirmation. The imposter knew her mother's maiden name. The list of persons who knew that, together with the fact that they could get into her mail at the farm, was very short. Amy thought the list only had one name on it, Karen Chandler. Her hands shook, not because she was scared, but because she was so angry that she was full of adrenaline. She had to do something, and she had to do it right away. Every second that went by was another second that the stolen money could be transferred, hidden, or spent. The first and most important thing she did was call the law company that was on the letterhead. She took a big breath, calmed down, and found the number. Her thoughts was racing as she dialed. What would she say? How could she show that she was Amy Roloff? She was getting set for a fight and was ready to fight to be believed. When a paralegal picked up the phone, Amy talked in a calm but tense voice. "Hi, I'm Amy Roloff. I need to talk to the lawyer who is in charge of my great-aunt's estate." They put her on hold. The wait was terrible. Every second felt like an hour. Finally, a friendly and professional voice came on the line. "This is Mr. Harrison. What can I do for you, Mrs. Roloff?" Amy took another big breath. "Mr. Harrison, my ex-husband recently sent me a letter from your office. It's proof that I got a $200,000 wire transfer. The issue is that I never talked to you. I never set up a transfer, and I haven't gotten any money yet." There was a moment of complete stillness on the other end of the telephone. Mr. Harrison, the lawyer, was probably trying to deal with the impossible. He had done everything he needed to accomplish. He had checked to make sure that the beneficiary